I got Ben Magnet.
Yo.
And I got Brandon McClure.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm checked off. So we're all good to board the Kang train, baby.
Yeah.
We're missing one. I think we're missing our conductor.
Choo choo! It's me! I was right! The Kang train is approaching! Hey, everybody! I just bought this green screen suit. I wanted to use it. Thank you for that, Sparks.
It's like you're emerging out of Jonathan Majors.
What's up? I'm Kang!
All right, I'm Sparks Whitty. This is Ryan Eliopoulos, who I think might be stripping down in a second.
A little bit.
And Brandon T. McClure and Ben Magnet. And we are here for the final episode of this season of Loki on Fake Nerds Watch, which is for all time, always. I'm so glad you brought up that little fun point, by the way, about it being a tie-in for like forever.
Oh,
and then now that it was
yeah.
Kang, I'm like,
Yeah.
perfect. Very perfect.
And now we're stuck with him forever, thankfully.
Since we're just talking about it right now, because we've been saying this pretty much since the start. When he showed up, the elevator opens up, and there's Jonathan Majors. I'm like, the sons of bitches, they did it.
My favorite thing about this was knowing Ben was watching it somewhere, and the elevator opened, and he went, Who's
that?
Who's that? Because Ben didn't watch Lovecraft Country with us. So Ben's like, what's happening?
Ooh, an actor.
And meanwhile, the three of us are going, shit, it's Kang!
Okay, so real quick. So like the week before this show, the last episode, I was on a roller coaster of it's not Kang, it's Kang, it's not Kang. It's a lot of people were on the internet.
As we were heading into watching it together, he's like, it's not Kang.
Yeah.
It's another Loki, it's not Kang.
I was another WandaVision. I was I didn't want to get Mephisto'd again. So once Miss Minute says, "He who remains," I'm like, okay, cool, we got it. I don't have to worry about the rest of the episode. I can just get to whatever the episode's about. And then yes, the elevator happened, and I'm like, those mother effers. I can't believe it.
Unbelievable.
We have so much to talk about in this episode. Like, not a lot really happened. It's mostly just a dialogue-heavy episode about who the new villain is, and like
so much happened.
But it's like so much actually happens, and just like I cannot believe they did it. Like, I really cannot believe they did it. Big shit, Ben. What do you got to say?
I kind of hate the fact that Sparks is right when I was watching it. Like,
I knew it in my head.
The elevator door opens and we see Jonathan Majors. And I'm like, that's Kang, right?
You know what's funny is I imagine it like that Justice League episode where Lex Luthor's in the Flash's body and he takes off the mask and he goes, I have no idea who this is.
Yeah. I'm watching it and I'm thinking, it's like, okay, if that's not Kang, I don't know who the hell that is. Luckily, no one asked because I was watching it with Fanny and our roommate. So we were watching it. He comes out and I'm sitting there going, just say Kang. Just say the name. Just so I know.
Well, that's the thing, Ben.
Technically, I have my green screen finger. Technically, he's not Kang.
Yeah.
He's He Who Remains, who is the oldest Kang in this MCU version.
And he did call himself a conqueror, so I'm like, I'll take it. I'll because I know it is Kang. Because like as the episode continued, I was like, oh no, that's. And then I saw Jonathan Majors. It clicked. And I'm like, oh yeah, duh, of course it's Kang. And I just like kept quiet the whole time. I didn't say anything. But then, of course, after the episode was done, I go to work the next day. And I'm talking to some of my work buddies who are also watching Loki. And one was like, hey, Ben, who's that? I was like, it's King of Conqueror. Who? Don't worry about it. You'll find out.
You got 10 years.
Ben pretending he was hot on that shit as it was happening rather than catching up later going, no, it's Kang. It's Kang, everybody.
Yeah, so
Jonathan Majors is Kang.
He Who Remains is like the guy who starts the TVA in the comics, but he's just like an old man. Like, he's not like anything big. Like, again, the TVA in the comics is kind of a joke. The fact that they kind of merged like a Kang variant with He Who Remains makes a lot of sense for the MCU. And like, I don't often use this term with the MCU because I really like it a lot, but I wouldn't use the term brilliant for a lot of its storytelling. What they're doing with Kang is brilliant. It is truly brilliant, not just in terms of storytelling, but what it does for the actor, because we're not just going to get one type of Jonathan Majors performance for the next 10 years. We're going to get potentially a dozen, potentially like who knows what. Right. And like the multiverse is exploded.
Even if we only get two versions of him, which is unlikely, but even if we get two versions, we still will get two distinct versions, and that's still brilliant.
Absolutely. Plus this one,
Kate Herron has done a lot of talking this week. And one of the things they talked about is the casting of Jonathan Majors that they were involved in for Ant-Man to connect it to Loki. Yes. And that what they did is they kept sending him different concept arts of different variations of the character, and he was creating different personas and voices. So I think we're probably seeing more than 2.
Sure. I love that.
Just based on that simple concept.
What's so great about the ending of a Marvel show is we get all these little tidbits, we get all these little things, and I wanted to bring up that apparently Jonathan Majors voiced all 3 timekeepers.
Yeah, love that.
I did not know cool. That's rad. I like it when they do shit like that
because it makes sense.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah, I just thought that was a fun little bit when they said that. I was like, that's really cool that they went that extra level.
Again, we mentioned it last week, but Chris Hemsworth voiced Throg, even though Throg literally just goes, like they got him in like a booth, or they just got him to record something.
He was there for What If, and they were like, hey, can you just give us like a
there you go. Yeah. Yeah, man, like
Chris Hemsworth voiced Thor in the sense that they pulled a Chris Hemsworth grunt from a different audio ADR thing, and they were like there, and they're like Chris Hemsworth voice Throg, and he hears about it, and he's like,
they chipmunked his voice.
I guess so. And he checks his like stipends, and he's like, in an episode of yep, I guess I was. Yeah.
So before we get to like the meat of it, let's talk about the side character, because they're not in it a lot. And I would be more critical if I didn't immediately know there was a season 2. Right. But Ravonna Renslayer, there is a plot thread going on with her where we meet another variant of her, which is this high school that she works at. It's where that pen is from that we saw in one of the earlier episodes. So that is a thread. I have no idea what's going on. That is clearly a setup for the next season. Like, I can't even pretend to speculate what her deal is. You know,
I assumed at least the immediate purpose was just to make them know, like people who didn't know what they knew. TVA she's agents. A variant.
Yeah.
Obviously. Yeah. Because here's another version of her.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, so we're all variants.
Yeah. I also mean our like the Judge Renslayer, because she's just like, I have a mission to go do. And I'm like, I don't know what that is yet.
Right. Ryan actually hit the nail on the head for me as well. I probably would be more critical of this, much like I was with WandaVision, where my biggest issue with WandaVision and partially Falcon Winter Soldier was that it didn't feel like a conclusion to the story. It felt like, hey, finish the story in Doctor Strange 2. But where Loki succeeded for me was that it actually felt like a prestige television show, in the sense that it finished the arc that it was telling and then said season 2 is where these threads are going to go to. And if there wasn't a season 2 announced, I probably would be slightly more critical on it, because I don't want to see like the next product to do that. That kind of rubs me the wrong way. But saying it's a season 2 feels better.
If there wasn't a season 2, I would almost want to say that they would end it differently.
Yeah.
Sure.
I know that that's actually not totally true, because again, Kate Herron decided to talk a lot this week. And one of the things they talked about was that when they were plotting out the show, there was no season 2 in the plan, and that the cliffhanger ending kind of came about in its own way, but everything else was kind of more or less going to be left for the movies to fill in.
Yeah.
And I'm like, boy, am I glad we don't live in that world.
Yeah.
Which is why I'm very happy. I'll say right up front, Loki's number 1 of the Disney Plus Marvel shows for me. I'm going to be critical still of the side character stuff, because I still think that now with it all behind me, I'm very satisfied, beyond satisfied. Mm-hmm. Last episode was everything I could have wanted it to be, in the sense of like what was going on, what was happening. But also watching it a second time, I wish there had been more character time for Mobius and Loki, for Sylvie and Loki. I think that some of these beats maybe we got too fast. Mm-hmm. There's this one particular time, it bothered me the first time, but it bothered me much more the second time, where Loki says to Sylvie, "That's what you think of me after all this time?" And I'm like, what is all this time to you? Because like, I don't think you've slept outside of the one moment on the train. Like, so we're on like day 2 of you talking to each other. And for me, like, even with them being the same person from different universes, the connection gets raised to its most dramatic stakes, because that's what it's doing. Yeah. But I don't know that it's earned.
Yeah, that's fair.
I actually will agree with I will agree with the romantic entanglement being not feeling necessarily earned. I can fall on the TVA excuse of time just works differently. So for Loki, it could be because he says it has been months, has been days. I don't even know how long it's been. But I don't mind them pairing Sylvie and Loki up in a romantic way. I just don't quite think that last romantic moment was earned. And kind of echoing what Sparks was saying.
Yeah. I don't really have an opinion on it, if I'm being honest. I think the romance it wasn't there enough for me to really care, if I'm being honest. Like it didn't
and I think that's the problem.
Yeah, it didn't bother me that like they kissed, but I'm like, I felt like, oh, I kind of saw that coming. I didn't see the betrayal in what happens after. I didn't see that part coming.
So I think the problem for me is the second time I was watching it is that Loki, and partially because Tom Hiddleston is very talented, is working from a place of I'm feeling deep romantic feelings in a way that I don't understand for you, and that's everything that's motivating what I'm doing right now in trying to stop you, in trying to protect us. Yeah. And from Sylvie, and this isn't a knock on the actor, but I don't feel that same stuff coming out. I don't think that the character is offered that same opportunity to have provided that kind of like, I'm feeling this conflict as well, or any of that, which makes this feel one-sided. And if that is the case, if it is one-sided, that's not clear.
Yeah.
And not a part of the story that's being fleshed out. So in general, that's why it falls a little flat in her motivations for me.
Sure.
Yeah, I totally understand that. There is a lot, because you mentioned Loki. I'll kind of like I'll jump to that real quick. The thing that I really like about Loki's character development in the show, and I've mentioned the fact that I am not as critical about his character development as I think you are, Sparks, specifically. But
real quick, I just want to clarify, because I was thinking about the way I put it last weekend. Here's my thing: if I watched the MCU up to the first Avengers and then immediately jumped to Loki, I don't know that I could buy that this is the same Loki. I feel like it is still trying to pay off an audience that has a knowledge of a better Loki than the Loki that would have had to have changed in the amount of time that this show provides.
But yeah, that's what the clip show is for, yeah?
Right, and that's why I have a hard time believing the development arc of this Loki. And again, this kind of goes back to, I think there should have been more time maybe for Loki and Sylvie, more time for Loki and Mobius, although I'm very happy with the show. Maybe it should have been longer, which is a longer discussion I'm going to bring up in a second, but go ahead, Brandon.
Well, the thing that I liked about, that I really enjoy about his character development comes to a head in this episode. With this fight that we're talking about where Loki is coming from, he is confronted with a choice, which is where all character developments eventually lead to. He is confronted with the choice of being the Loki that he had tried to be in the first Thor film, going back on his character development, or proving that he has in fact changed and take a different path. And the fight kind of represents that struggle that he's trying to prove to Sylvie that he can take a different path, but she doesn't trust him. And I really like how Tom Hiddleston plays it, and I really honestly like how it's written. To me, that just at the end of the day, that just really worked for me on a really visceral level.
Yeah, I think Tom Hiddleston's performance, especially in this episode, really carries a lot of it for me. While I do agree with some of the things Sparks brought up, I do think his performance is kind of beating away some of the negativity for me. And I do agree, like it might have been rushed, but like just the scene where he's like, "Is this what you think of me?" I bought that scene.
This episode does a lot of kind of making up for
progression
things that earlier episodes should have done.
Yeah.
And I agree. I do think that like a lot of his performance in this earns most of it.
Yeah.
In the sense of like his character arc and him coming to this conclusion at the end. I just think that he was more or less put on to the point where he's like, he would have made this choice for sure, no matter what. I wasn't worried about it as an audience member 2 episodes ago. Yeah. When I would have rather been teetering like, will he go for it? I don't know. Whereas I feel like I could trust this Loki 3 episodes ago.
Yeah. I do wish that like the final like thing wasn't like a thing of like love between them. Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
Though when Sylvie takes that swing and he shows up in front of her, my heart stopped.
Yeah,
that was a good moment.
It's like an incredibly well crafted scene.
They let Tom Hiddleston do 4 stops and put different emotion behind them. So good for him.
The choreography of that fight sequence is some of the best.
I have one particular problem. It's a problem that I have in general with fight scenes, but this one like just is one where it comes up, and it's right at the beginning of the fight. It's right after Sylvie takes the first swing. Loki comes back with 3, and I'm like, if you're the dude that's just trying to stop, not hurt her. You don't come back with 3 slashes. Like, I'm like, that's immediately the next moves he does.
Please stop
I'm
attacking
like, that's a fight choreography thing.
Yeah.
But like, that always bothers me when this is not the only thing that's guilty of it. That always bothers me when you have a character who's supposed to be doing like the protecting thing and stopping a person being defensive, but they go for the like really aggressive attack move right after they do the parry, and I'm like, that's too much if you're actually just trying to push them away.
Yeah, the use of him like using like telekinesis again to like grab her, I thought that was awesome. I wish we had more instances of that instead of just me going back to the one thing where he pushed a building with his brain, because I'm like, I really like him having telekinesis. I think that's a really cool, awesome.
Sylvie's got it too now.
Yeah, I think that's cool. Like them learning each other's powers. Like I think I'm okay with that.
Yeah, that's why I really like the last episode, is that kind of like Loki believed in himself enough and believed in her that he could that he can develop that power, and he did it in the moment of crisis. That actually goes up to one of my points. I don't think this is, for me, the show has kind of gotten better and better for a lot of times, but I think for me the show did peak at 5. The 5th episode for me is the best episode of the show. But this still concluded in an incredibly satisfying way, and I'm just like, applaud that.
I was beyond satisfied, because again, people were saying like, there's no way, like going back to WandaVision, like you can't just introduce your villain in the last episode. Yes, you can.
Yes, you can.
There's no reason you can't. If you have a good script, like these are hour-long shows. Kang has had more screen time than a lot of other characters, because this is an hour-long show. He's in this entire episode almost. Like,
I never understood that argument. Like, it's the Wizard of Oz thing. If you have a goal, the goal of the show was to find who ran the TVA, and at the last episode you reach that goal, that means you find who ran the TVA.
That's like Brandon, like you said, it's Wizard of Oz. Like people saying, yeah, the movie's called Wizard of Oz, but the wizard's never in it.
Yeah,
you find the wizard in the last act.
Last like 15 minutes, yeah.
Clearly, people who don't read manga
watch
anime.
We're bringing up Wizard of Oz, but big Willy Wonka energy. He was protruding in this episode. Oh my gosh, he did like the thing with the chin that everyone knows. Like he's skipping around. Like he's so good. He's plays so like he plays like a sociopath, but like who thinks he's a good person. Like, and I guess you could say he's the best version of himself.
I love Jonathan Majors so much.
He killed it.
So really, really quick on the whole Loki plus Sylvie thing. I don't have a really big problem with it. Silky, I guess if you're calling it. But
God,
that's their
wow,
ship
make
name.
me hate a thing quick.
Oh no.
Yeah, well, all I have to say about that is that it brings a whole new meaning to the term "go f yourself," right?
Oh, there we go.
Oh man, Kate Herron has been talking a lot, and she was talking about the fact that like they did Masters of Sex, which is a show, and they were like, I'm just really drawn to stories about self-love, and I'm like, yeah, I can tell.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
So that's my one thing about that. But the one person I really want to talk most about is Jonathan Majors, because when he shows up, because you're right, he is like Willy Wonka. He is Willy Wonka dialed into, like Willy Wonka high on crack cocaine, but also has this grand whimsy about him.
I think you're watching a different Willy Wonka if he's not high on crack cocaine.
It just felt like what Jonathan Majors was doing. And one of the things that was profound was when they crossed the threshold, and because all that whimsy was
all
gone.
Performance. It's all in the performance.
Like when he becomes like real, like when he's like having scenes like, oh, I know exactly what's gonna happen. I know this, I know that, and then he's like that 30 or okay, maybe 30 seconds is too long, but that 15 to 20 seconds of where the camera's slowly coming in on him, zooming in on him, and he's like, I don't know.
He has a stutter because like he's like basically had a script for eons because like he knows what's going to happen. So for the first time in his life, he's off script. Mm-hmm. So like he stutters when he starts to talk, and I'm like, that's a great little choice to make, man.
Yeah.
Everything about I'm watching this, I'm like, oh, he's good. I'm just like, no, give him the Emmy. Give him the Emmy.
It's that nervousness. It's that nervousness about it that really sells it for me. Is the idea that like because Ben, you suggested that he kind of smiles when he's like, I don't know what's going to happen next. But to me, it felt he was nervous. Like that's it. I don't know what's going to happen next. I'm being candid. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
He was nervous, but he was also excited because he was still like jumping up on a seat when they were fighting because he's like, "Oh, this is exciting."
He was excited because like for the first time in his life he doesn't know what's going to happen, or for the first time in eons he doesn't know what's going to happen. But that kind of like worry at the beginning where he's like that nervousness crossing the threshold for the first time. Kind of you kind of feel like it's the first time in his life or the first time in a long time that he's crossed that threshold.
the multiversal war, because again, like this is the first time we're meeting him, and this is all we're getting for this version of Kang. But like he gets super emotional for something we don't know anything about, the multiversal war. But for him, that was a big deal because he starts like choking up talking about it, and I'm like, we're gonna see that shit in the future, and it's gonna be wild. Guys.
It's all
It's Secret
performance.
Wars, guys. It's Secret Wars. Secret Wars is.
It's all performance, and Jonathan Majors kills it.
Yeah. He makes you believe he's a person who has known everything up to a point.
Yeah.
No shit. Like the first time we watched it, and it's doing the slow pan. Like my favorite direction of the whole show. Slow move in while he's passing the threshold. Slow pull out once they do it. And his performance during it, I was like, absolutely best shot of the show.
Yeah.
My whole process was just like, just give him the Emmy. I don't care if he was only one episode of a show. Emmy's his.
That's how guest spot. That's how that works.
Don Cheadle's nominated for.
He's nominated.
He's in Falcon and Winter Soldier. So
literally 2 minutes. That's crazy.
Best guest actor.
Yeah. The special effects in the show have always been good, but this straight up was just movie quality level. Like we're like the Citadel at the end of time, the sacred timeline in a circle. Like that's just like the big budget beauty, baby.
The second time I watched it, it dawned on me, and I said, we are looking at the concept of time.
Yeah.
We are looking at the visualization of the concept of the flow of time right now, all around us. And I was like, that is the biggest, boldest thing that I have ever seen in the MCU.
Yes.
And it's on a TV show on Disney Plus.
That's why, again, like I love this episode so much just for how bold it is being. It's like, remember how we spent 10 years building to a guy who was trying to build a glove? That guy's nothing. That guy's literally nothing in the grand scheme of Kang's conquest. We're like, he let that happen. Kang let that happen because that's part of his order or whatever. And I'm like, I'm just so excited for all the different variants, all the different things that they're setting up. Like they brought up that he's from the 31st century. That's Nathaniel Richards. That's also where Iron Lad comes from. So like the future, it's so bright. And I was like I was wondering, like, what's the big bad going to be? Galactus and Eyeless. I'm like, oh no, you got the same guy possibly 6 times in a row. It's great, and he's so talented. Like, so happy.
I'm so happy.
I do hope we see Galactus sometime down the line, but I don't think he needs to be the big bad for anything.
Well, we're getting Fantastic Four soon, so I would assume Galactus is now on the table, but he's probably going to be on the table further down the list.
So there's not many Easter egg cameo stuff in this episode because this is mostly just like getting to the villain.
Except for the whole opening.
Except for the opening, which was just lots of callbacks to the Marvel stuff and also like real world events. But also, if you notice, there is a flying spaceship that's very quickly on screen. And it doesn't look like any Quinjet that we've seen. It doesn't look like any ship that we've seen before. People are speculating.
It's a little outside of space of our usual operational space.
So like people are having fun speculating that that's the Fantastic car lost in space.
Once he showed me a picture and I watched the episode a second time, I'm like, oh, that's very clearly there.
It flies by pretty quick, very much like in Ant-Man. There's a quantum city that like blink and you'll miss it. Yeah. I honestly wouldn't be shocked if like the Fantastic Four show up somehow in Quantumania, because we already know they're coming soon. They got announced with Phase 4. They don't have to be a big thing, but if we're dealing with like quantum stuff, like we know they didn't do it for no reason, so it's something. Megan did point out it could have been a different Kang already. No, I assume that's
which is possible as well.
Chronopolis. Oh, you know, the spaceship.
Spaceship.
That's true. I'm just like, man, the fact that it's Kang, this really opens the doors for so many things. The ending for whatever season 2 is, Loki's dealing with like an alternate TVA now that's run by Kang. Just
someone recolored that statue to look like the comic colors. I'm like, man, that's beautiful.
The ending, since you brought it up, Ryan, the ending where Mobius doesn't recognize him broke my heart.
Oh God,
legitimately.
I'm not gonna lie, I was really hoping that at the end of this, because I didn't know we were getting a season 2 until like the very end. It said Loki will return in season 2. I didn't know that, and I was hoping that there was like some happy ending where Mobius and Loki run jet skis together. I was hoping for that to happen.
Season 2, baby.
It could still happen. It could still happen. So
that'll be the end of his story, which clearly this wasn't.
Yeah. So do you guys think, now that we're here, do you think season 2 involves Kang, or do you think this was just opening the doors and it's just dealing with multiversal stuff?
I mean, it has to,
because
we just saw big.
So.
I know, but like like they could do the thing where he's not there or something. I'm just like,
I mean, I don't know that we see him like all the time, but I'm sure we see him.
Yeah.
I think that season 2 will introduce us. Regardless of, we don't know when season 2 is coming. That's for Kevin Feige to decide. He could throw it in the already announced stuff, or it could be after.
It's definitely before Ant-Man 3, I bet, though.
Well, if it is before Ant-Man 3, then I think we're introduced to the main Kang that will be the main villain Kang.
Yeah. So He Who Remains is not a Kang, but this version of the Kang was kind of wearing the Immortus outfit. So let's just say if this one's the Immortus, and we still got Kang, we still got the Pharaoh Ramen Tut, who is a king who went to Egypt to rule Egypt. So the Avengers can go back in time and deal with that guy. There's Iron Lad. There's evil Kid Immortus. There's just, man, and again, I just want to see Jonathan Majors just like suit up like a bunch of different times. So that just seems like such a fun thing for an actor to do.
Kang Cade.
It's the decade of Kang. It's the decade of Kang. It's a Kang Cade. I honestly couldn't be more excited for an actor to be cast in something, like, truly.
Yeah, I am too. Although for Iron Lad, I would imagine they'd probably cast someone younger.
Oh, yeah, don't de-age him or something.
No, but I'm sure that now, especially that we know kind of where season 2 is going, and it being like, regardless of the multiverse stuff, like it dealing with time travel, like that's what the first arc of Young Avengers is about, is the fact that Iron Lad goes back in time and destroys the world because Kang is never created, essentially. Like, now I'm kind of thinking maybe the Alan Heinberg run, while not the same team, will probably be a similar story structure with centered around Nathaniel Richards.
Yeah, and dealing with I don't want to become the greatest villain of the universe. Yeah,
it would make sense.
It would make sense. Yeah. It just makes me excited thinking about it, because like you guys know how much I love Marvel, and I'm like, man, there's just so much they haven't touched yet. Like, it's really exciting.
Sparks, are you saying something?
No, nope.
You're saying something. I'm sorry.
No, I'm sure it was just some side comment, but I wasn't thinking about it that much, so it didn't retain.
Does Kang show up in Spider-Man or Doctor Strange?
No,
potentially Doctor Strange. I don't know if I want him to show up in Spider-Man.
I'm not saying I want him. Go ahead, say what, Ben?
I would say Doctor Strange, more likely.
Yeah.
Because I think with Spider-Man, we got a whole bunch of multiverse shit in there already, and
I think at this point, to whatever degree Kevin Feige can keep only one person from the MCU having to appear in Spider-Man outside of Tom Holland and the rest is what he's trying to do. So Doctor Strange is the one and done.
Kevin is like holding the door back, like, no more heroes.
Amy Pascal's trying to bang down the door. He's like, no, you can't have him.
Kevin, let Venom in.
You know what's funny is that Kevin Feige has a funny out if Amy Pascal was like, so Venom's in the MCU, is like, sure, in that branch there.
Yeah, like
that one there.
Yeah.
That's Venom.
I mean, they did.
I genuinely, this is why I wanted to look it up, because I looked up all the audio bits someone spliced in the visuals that every audio bit is from throughout that whole opening.
Oh, cool.
And I was like, surely one of them is like a cheeky nod to the Spider-Man movies, like the Raimi ones or something.
Yeah.
Nope. All MCU or real world stuff, nothing else.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
when I was watching this episode, I was watching with subtitles on, so I was like, oh, hey, that's from Ant-Man. You know, so you guys see Rogers saying I could do this all day. You got
there's your Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. season 6 and 7 for those of you who give a shit.
Yeah.
You got Greta Thunberg. That's how you say her name, right?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. There's so I actually wanted to ask you guys, I'm curious. So alternate timelines are not the same thing as alternate dimensions. Alternate timelines means if you choose A or B, one timeline you went B and one time they went A. But alternate dimensions are things can be so drastically different that I'm blue in a parallel world.
Or you actually can see blue.
Or fuck you.
That's a good one, man.
I love you, Brandon. I love you, bro.
Shit. That was slick.
Damn.
I
That took me by surprise.
I don't have many of them, but when I do, they're golden.
Damn. I need a moment.
I'm sorry, dude. You know I mean it.
I know. It's great. I love it. So like a world where Andrew Garfield is Spider-Man isn't an alternate timeline from the MCU. It would have to be a parallel universe. I have a theory. I don't know if this is what they want to do, but this is what they're doing. My theory is when Kang says I isolated the timeline, it went back to what we had speculated in the first episode, that he isolated it from everyone else And there is still a multiverse, but our timeline was blocked, and creating the alternate timelines broke that barrier.
Okay, so I think I know why you're saying alternate timelines and alternate dimensions are not the same thing. I don't think that Loki or the MCU is playing in that space. I think alternate timelines and alternate dimensions are interchangeable. Otherwise, why would we have Black Loki and
Classic
Kid Loki
Well, that's
and
fair.
Girl Loki?
Well, Loki is the one that I can wisp away because he can change his appearance at will.
Sure, but I mean, like, there's I don't. Yeah, but Sylvie's not Tom Hiddleston deciding to look like.
I was just asking what you guys think of that theory, or does it hold any weight whatsoever? I wasn't saying you guys have to adhere to it.
I think the implication is even with Jonathan Majors as Kang, like, you know, like, not necessarily every variant we see of him might in fact be Jonathan Majors all the time. We'll see. I want it to be Jonathan Majors as often as possible, but I do think this is far more like the opportunity to provide different people being able to portray certain characters. This may be a way we see a different T'Challa someday. You know, like things like that. I do think the MCU is operating in a mind space where like alternate timelines and alternate dimensions are interchangeable. They're not a simple, oh, I zigged when I should have zagged this one time. And I don't think that it's working in that way.
Yeah. I was just thinking that would, I mean, you know, headcanons being headcanons, what they are. Like that was kind of what I took from it because I was like, okay, so did Loki create the Bryan Singer X-Men films and the Sam Raimi Spider-Man films? Is that what we're going with now?
No, but the multiverse is open now, so this is how easily you can get everything.
I think
maybe they were pruned.
I think less the fact that Loki created them, more the fact they always existed. Loki simply opened the gateways so that these things can interact. Not that they ever will or should, but they can. Like this is much the, you know, the same impetus that Crisis on Infinite Earths on the CW took, except that they're not going like bonanzas right out of the gate with it. They're just saying like, you know, things are on the table right now. It's not saying anything in particular. It's just saying things can be whatever they want them to be now.
Right. Yeah, and Marvel's just like, you see all those trillions of universes, they all matter. Every single one, even you, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., even you get to matter. There
were people talking. I was talking about this online because someone was like, the MCU just fixed all their plot holes. I go, well, I don't think that what they're insinuating is that there's a world where Terrence Howard is still Rhodey. I don't think there's a world where he got a facelift and became Don Cheadle.
I mean, see, I love because like there's an infinite number of alternate realities. So like there is a world where Don Cheadle isn't.
Wait, you're right.
I'm saying.
Yeah. So all it is realistically, Iron Man doesn't actually take place in our main MCU. Iron Man actually takes place in the variant one. And there's an Iron Man with Don Cheadle that we just never get to see. Where the events were the same. It's just Don Cheadle. And there's a whole MCU where we got Terrence Howard.
He didn't get in the fun V.
This is the door. This is the extra door that I was hoping to stay closed.
No. This is the door to the rabbit hole that I do not want to go down.
All right, we're going down it. Chase that rabbit. Let's go.
No, I don't want to chase the rabbit.
That's what's fun about infinite realities. Like, it's just an excuse for you to tell whatever story you want. That's all it is. It's small or big as you want. You want to change the color of Captain America's shield, or you want to change the color of Captain America. It's all.
I think also like bringing up Terrence Howard and thinking of Edward Norton as well is just like a good example of like we don't need to be married to this concept to necessarily like recast characters. We could just recast characters.
Yeah, it's Hollywood. People get it. Real life interferes sometimes. People
right.
Get it.
I was saying that they're not going to use it to like create to fix plot holes, but like we're gonna go in this timeline now to the people I was talking to online who were saying that's what they just did. Yeah. Anyway, anything else we want to talk about?
Yeah.
Good. No, you go, Ben. You haven't said a lot.
Nothing else really. I had a blast with those last. I love how the fifth episode was very big, bombastic. You got Richard E. Grant yelling glorious purpose in the fight scene with Eliath, and this one was kind of subdued. I mean, yes, you have the fight scene between Loki and Sylvie, which was really cool. I enjoyed watching it, but I wasn't there for the fighting. I was there for the fallout. I was there for fighting He Who Remains, Jonathan Majors as Kang, or that version of Kang, and then also seeing the fallout when Mobius goes back to the TVA, sees Ravonna, and just that whole thing. And even when B-15 is like, "This, we're all variants. Here's the proof."
It's a pretty good saying.
There's our boss.
Pretty good saying. Sparks, you wanted to say something specific though.
I wonder how useful like the scene with the B-15 going to Ohio, like other than telling the audience like, hey, by the way, she's like letting them know that they're variants, and I'm like, that's real cool. They don't remember that by the end of this episode, so I don't know what that's fulfilling.
That's the thing, though. So when Loki gets pushed back in the portal, that's not the same. I think that's a different reality. That's a different reality that the TVA is also that like now that the branches are.
You don't
open,
think he's in the same TVA?
No, it can't be. No, I don't think so.
You
Well,
don't
the
think
TVA
that's already changed?
No, because he got pushed through before Kang died.
I don't know if that matters in the TVA because the TVA kind of exists beyond the regular time.
No, that's true. That's true.
That's why I figure the change happened there before it's happening everywhere else. So the change happens there first. Fun fact that John Radley, who friend of the podcast and friend of mine, talked to me about that. He pointed out that I didn't catch the receptionist, who's played by his name escapes me. Hold on. But the guy who says, yeah, we have the Infinity Stones as paperweights is now
Casey. He's a hunter.
Not a receptionist now. He's a hunter. He's one of the guys leading them when Loki's running through the hall before he gets to Mobius and B-15.
Yeah.
Cool.
He got his. It's supposed to be another clue of like things are different.
Yeah.
Hold on.
The thing
Eugene Cordero.
Right. The thing that's interesting about that is that really the only one thing must have changed for the TVA, and it's that if Loki is no longer if being a variant is a bad thing, then they never picked up Loki.
Yeah, like so like whatever happened, like Loki just doesn't like Loki's. I guess he's not wanted.
He's displaced.
He's displaced, so he's just like that's again. I'm so glad there's a season 2 because otherwise I'd be like what's going on, you guys?
Yeah, I don't think that they're in an alternate TVA. Yeah. I think that they're in the same TVA, but the rules have been changed before he got to the others.
Okay, so then that means that I'm assuming this is going to happen to make it spicy. That B-15 and all those hunters who went to Ohio, like when the King stuff happened, they were away from that. So when they got back, they're still themselves. Because otherwise, then that scene would have been pointless.
I agree. That's why I'm really, and it's one of those things where like, thank God we're getting a season 2, because otherwise, I think that was kind of an unsatisfying thread to even tease us with.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I just, in general, I wish there was a little more kind of like clarity on what the impact was of that, because like while the cliffhanger, this is another thing where I wonder how much of their clarity there really was, because again, maybe that was planned pre-cliffhanger ending. Mm-hmm. So I don't know.
Yeah.
But B-15, it's implied that B-15 also doesn't recognize Loki because she's the one who asked for the people.
Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot she was there with him at the end. Damn it. No, you're right. Sorry. I forgot. I was just thinking about Owen Wilson. Oh, man. Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, yeah. That's, I don't know why that's
a little weird.
Yeah, it's a little weird.
You're
it's
right.
a little weird.
You're right.
And I think also like the note we leave Ravonna on is a little weird too, where it's like just dipping out and halfway into the episode, and
so there's been
no clarity given on like what Miss Minutes gave her.
Yeah.
I talked about it before where I'm like, I'm not really sure why He Who Remains would send her to find anyone that isn't himself, and she doesn't find him obviously, so I don't know where she goes.
Yeah. I wonder if they don't even know yet they're still ready.
Yeah, I wonder that too. Boy, that's something I want to talk about. What slight tangent, but related to this show. The writer for Black Widow talked this week about not knowing what they were actually writing the post-credit scene to tease up. And I'm starting to get to a point where I'm like, at this point, maybe just stop doing post-credit scenes, guys. Yeah. Like if you don't even know, don't do it. I'm beginning to wonder how much bang for our buck we're getting out of that anymore.
Maybe that's why it was good that this for Loki's was like, hey, just season 2's coming, instead of like some other thing that
it wasn't like a WandaVision where you have one post-credit scene with crap baskets, Photon, What's
Captain
Monica.
Monica Rambeau.
Monica Rambeau? Thank you. Yeah, where you have that Monica Rambeau with the scroll, and then you go over. Then the very end, you see Wanda in the mountains where she's like reading the book, and she hears her boys through the multiverse.
I'm assuming like when the multiverse breaks, like in Loki, is when she's like, "Oh, I heard my boys in the multiverse now."
That's what a lot of people are saying. I agree. Yeah.
I saw a clickbait article from CBR that like, hey, now WandaVision makes sense now.
I assume that the branches breaking are the same reason stuff happens in Spider-Man, the same reason stuff happens in Doctor Strange. It's all at those moments in time. Not that these things are happening at the same time, but those branches are hitting at those points.
Yeah.
I assume now, because people have brought it up, and I agree with the fan theory that when she hears her boys, that's when the branch is created where she didn't lose them, or something else happened.
Sure.
That's what I think.
She's gonna steal those boys.
Yeah, I agree. I figure so. But yeah, I'm thinking about like not knowing the ending you were necessarily ending up heading for the show, not knowing what the post credits that you have to write for this movie is heading up. I'm like, I don't want Marvel Studios to get too far into putting the cart before the horse, because I'm wondering at what point it's actually going to kick them in the face.
Mm-hmm. We are generally very positive on the MCU. We all really like it, but there are shortcomings to it. We've talked about the third act action sequences often suffer from the fact that they're always previs before the script is written. And I think the post credit thing is a good point. James Gunn has talked about the fact that he just makes his post credit scenes just kind of whatever. He doesn't try to tease anything up. He's just kind of having fun with them. These kind of set up post credit scenes. I also wonder, like, if the director's not going to be involved in that part, what's the point?
Bringing up James Gunn's is a great point, where like Guardians of the Galaxy 2 has a post credit scene teasing Adam Warlock, and by the time we finally meet Adam Warlock, like, holy shit, are we so far away from that post-credit scene? Like, I would have almost rather not had it.
Sure, yeah, but there's also other post-credit scenes that are just there for fun.
No, and I get it, and I'm not knocking the ones that aren't plot heavy. I'm starting to question the ones that are plot heavy, especially when they don't know necessarily what they mean, other than like they are just setting up a concept of an idea that they have at the time, which is what it's becoming increasingly clear is what's happening. Even as from what they describe as they were heading into the finale of this show, just kind of being like, yeah, about end it around this concept here. Well, it's going to be a cliffhanger. Never mind. Go ahead and make it a cliffhanger.
Yeah.
It's so loosey goosey that I hope that like it worked out fine here in Loki. That's not really my point. My point being like, eventually it's not going to.
And Spider-Man.
I hope we get further. I hope we get further away from that. I mean, you could even make an argument that it didn't work out so great with WandaVision.
Yeah. I don't know if that was.
Some of it might be affected by COVID, but like we don't really know. But like if there are similar concepts here, I can see where like what we were talking about of some of these character arcs not being fully fleshed out is because of a poor lack of like actually visualizing the end of the road, because you're always thinking about the next step after it.
Sure.
That's what we've talked about. We've talked about that a lot, where it doesn't always feel like the directors have as much say in their story as they should. Kevin Feige is obviously the grandmaster of the MCU.
Well, it doesn't feel like that recently, because like recently we've got like Thor and like Black Panther and
right. There are exceptions to the rules. Obviously, Taika Waititi, James Gunn. Oh my goodness, Black Panther director Ryan Coogler. Thank you. Have been able to shepherd characters and shepherd story arcs and things like that, and obviously actors have as well. We saw it with WandaVision with Scarlett Elizabeth Olsen, and we see it with Bruce Banner, Mark Ruffalo. I just kind of wish it happened more broadly across the board than just kind of the exceptions.
Well, and also I think like one of the reasons why we're so okay with Loki and where Loki's at, like I genuinely at this point, like I think even if they had intended it, I don't think a 6-episode miniseries would have been satisfying for the story they were trying to tell. And I think if this was the end of it, even with more Kang coming in the movies, even with some of these other characters appearing in later movies, I would still be like, yeah, but I kind of wish this told a whole story.
They definitely would.
And it's good that this is a season 2, but we've had 2 other shows that were like, no, we told the whole story here. And I'm like, did you?
No, yeah, like definitely, like again, it's always with the side characters. Like, I don't see how they would easily just fit the Ravonna stuff with the high school in like Eternals or something. Like that doesn't make sense.
No,
for
sure.
So like, yeah, like I'm super glad that season 2's happening. Otherwise,
yeah. And it's not that I think all the Disney Plus shows need to be their own like successive season shows.
Yeah.
I just also want them to not necessarily have to think, which I think is kind of where we're sitting right now, and hopefully it'll change. We are in the early days of the Disney Plus Marvel shows.
Yeah.
But less, this is the pretense to a thing that the movies will do, and more just, I'm telling a story. Here's the end of that story.
I'm really hoping
sometimes with main characters and sometimes with side characters and sometimes with both.
Yeah.
Depending on which one we're talking about.
I mean, honestly, like up until Kang, like this did just feel like a cool Loki story. Like I didn't feel it obviously built into being like a big thing that impacted everything, but like for the most part, I still felt like this was a nice self-contained thing more than the other shows that dealt with Shield.
But again, like it would have been the side characters. Like I would have been sitting here at the end if this had been the end of the show hypothetically. Like I would have been sitting here like, man, I really wish we'd actually done more with like Hunter B-15. I don't know where we were going with that.
Yeah.
Even if like this episode had tried to, there would not have been enough time to necessarily have rounded out what was going on with her at the time.
Oh, I agree.
There would not have been enough time to round out what was going on with Ravonna at the time, even if this episode had been planned for it. And that's kind of my thing, which also brings me to, I still kind of wish the show was a little longer.
Oh, yeah.
I've seen the thought shared around a lot this week about what people wanted these Marvel shows to be and what they're not getting out of it, which is something a little closer to Mandalorian, something a little more episodic in nature in general.
Yeah.
Other like have a big story, but have little moments in it rather than feeling like a movie elongated. And I think there is some merit to that. I don't necessarily want completely episodic television, but I also don't think this show would have hurt from at least a single episode that was what everyone thought it was, which is Owen Wilson and Loki going and doing a time variant thing and just doing one and not blatantly hinting at how the TVA might be screwed up, but Loki slowly starting to gestate on it and piece it together. And just allow more time for those relationships to be fleshed out. Because again, that's kind of the point of having the television series. And I think there is merit to having those conversations about it because it doesn't need to be locked into these concepts of 6 episodes. And I hope they don't stay married to like 6 hours as like their ideal rough idea of what every show needs to be on Disney Plus is roughly 6 hours, because feel free to tell the story for as long as the story should be told.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to learn a lot from these TV shows, and I've talked about it before that I think we are, as Marc said, in the early days of them, and they'll learn. Not keeping it to the 6 hours thing, but also maybe not looking at them as one of the things I liked about Loki more than WandaVision, more than Falcon Winter Soldier, is that it felt like a prestige television show. It didn't necessarily feel like a 6-hour movie, like what Falcon Winter Soldier was trying to go for. Less of the 6-hour movies and more of the 6-hour television shows is what you should be going for. That gives the Disney Plus stuff a lot more merit, I think, to kind of exist in this space.
Yeah, I think that's the problem. And again, like Loki did it best so far, but like they wanted to have the movies on the TV screens. That was like the promise, but maybe that's not what they should be. They should just be, if you're gonna make a TV show, make a TV show. Like. Yeah. Stop trying
to make it look like the movie, but don't make it like a movie.
Hey guys, HBO's been doing this for 20 years. Like, you can do it.
I really appreciate that we just watched Black Widow and Loki and two properties that can be further alike, but still they look like they belong. The production value looks like it's the same, and I appreciate that they have kept that level of production value on their shows.
Yeah, I agree.
One of the things I find it fun. Sparks, since we're talking about the MCU as a whole, not the whole big discussion, but Spider-Man Far From Home is currently the furthest point in the MCU still.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I find that real funny because we're 3 seasons deep on the TV shows and 1 movie in.
Megan and I were talking about it after she finished the episode, and that I think that knowing that the plan was Kang now, knowing that the next Thanos is Kang, knowing that we're looking at a decade of different variations of Jonathan Majors appearing. It makes a little more sense why we're doing this like long road up to like having everything catch up to the moment of 2023, giving themselves a bit of a wide gap in the real world time, because everything's got to catch up to this moment because time is so important and the villain playing a role in it. So entirely surprising to me anymore that that's what we're doing. I do think that's funny that it is like that, that we're doing all these things that are actually playing in a space before the last movie we saw.
And Spider-Man's taking place not far
barely after
the last
Far
movie.
From Home,
so
I'm
it's
sure.
like
there's no way it's like a year later.
No.
To be fair, we don't know when Shang-Chi takes place, but still, that's kind of where we're sitting right now. Shang-Chi.
Yeah. No, yeah, I want to believe it's in the blip, but like he's working at like a hotel with like fancy cars that looks like the regular world.
I mean, it still can. We'll see.
I don't know, man. We saw New York in 2020.
I also submitted that the whole movie doesn't have to take place in the blip, but part of it could.
Yeah, maybe.
I think more than anything, I'm just sitting at like, I would love something that's like Shang-Chi, that let it be the Blade movie. I don't care. Something that does live in that space, like what the world was like during that time, that we're not necessarily following the Avengers, what's left of them, but like what was the world like for those 5 years, and actually spend some time with it with some character. And it seems easier to do with a character we haven't met yet.
That's true.
So whether it's Shang-Chi or not, I still want that. I want something that takes, maybe it's Moon Knight. I don't know.
Making it the Blade movie would be fun, because it's just like, since there are half the people, the vampires are starving, so they're coming out of the woodworks.
Whatever, like really whatever. I just
that's actually a good idea, Brandon.
Cool. I just think that there should be somewhere where we use one of these characters we're bringing in brand new and use it as an opportunity to say, like, we could go back and explore that 5-year space that's really, really vapid and vacant. But we'll see if that ever happens. Maybe.
Well, I think Loki is by far the best of the 3 shows that we've gotten so far. Yeah, I'm very satisfied with the season 1 ending. I'm really excited for season 2.
It's really nice to have a finale that doesn't bum you out.
Yeah.
Let me tell you. Super nice. And like I just, it was so awesome that they just let Jonathan Majors just act for like half an hour. Like it was just really, it's not a finale you'd expect. Like the finale really would have been the 5th episode with big giant smoke monster. But really, then we just got a dude monologuing about how, oh my God, he had so many good lines. This is my final thoughts. A great show. When he dies and his final lines are "see you soon," that's one of the most ominous things I've ever seen in the MCU.
Sylvie just sitting there like, oh,
that is so spooky, because like we know, like, oh my God, she just,
and he
like
winks.
Oh my God, she's the reason that like we have the next Avengers movie. Thank you, Sylvie.
There's a line that I love so much, and it's been floating around obviously, but it's when Jonathan Major says, "If you think I'm evil, wait till you meet my variants." So good.
So also he introduces a interesting concept that I think is worth having a little discussion about, which is that he implies that at the moment, even with them breaking the branches, everything is a circle. Because he says he'll just end up back there anyway.
Because with it
happening, he's going to end up doing the same thing again.
Yeah.
So they're stuck in a time loop circle, essentially, where even if they make this choice that he doesn't know they'll make, the multiversal war will happen. A variant of him will still do this. Reincarnation will happen, and he'll be back at that spot.
Yeah,
that's what he said.
God. Yeah. Oh my God, you're so right. Because oh my God, let me roll with this real quickly. Okay, so we saw the timeline, right? It's a circular. It's a world serpent around the Citadel. What if the ending of Phase 5, whatever Avengers movie it is, Avengers Forever, Avengers 16 Forever, whatever, they at the end of that, it breaks that circle and becomes a line, and the time is now just a line.
No. I do think that like whenever the Kang stuff is done, that is essentially the concept. So my main thing when I was watching it the second time is I'm like, I bet we see He Who Remains again before Jonathan Majors is done with the MCU. Yeah. I do think we see him having come back all the way around the other side. Because again,
I 100% believe, because again, they do this in the comics, like to beat Kang, you're going to need a Kang's help. Like, there's just no other way around it. Like, because like the Avengers we got, like,
we're gonna see
what
them.
What are you gonna do against this guy?
When we're getting to the end of the Kangcade, we're gonna see them come back to this same place. Yeah. This Kang, this He Who Remains Kang, and he's gonna be like,
"Told you,
here I am, right back where I started."
And it could be like,
"Oh damn!"
It could be like more characters in that moment too.
Loki now check back with me in 2033. Let me know.
Damn, 12 years.
Ryan, I have a question, because I know about the Council of Reeds.
Council of Kangs.
Is there a Council of Kangs in the comics?
Yeah, that was first. That came out first.
Cool.
Yeah, it happened in the 80s. Oh, yeah. Council of Kangs was the first one, baby.
I really like that they introduced that idea that the different Kangs throughout the multiverse just decided to meet together, make that council. I immediately went to the Council of Reeds from Fantastic Four, but I wasn't sure if that was also the Council of Kang.
That's where Hickman got the idea.
I had long conversations with both John Radley, who is very comic savvy, knows who Kang is, all that kind of stuff. Was trepidatious going into this about like the idea that it would be Kang, kind of wanting me to be wrong, but then like was very, very sold on the concept as it was executed here, and also loves Jonathan Majors now. And then talking to a friend of mine, Michael, about who's not comic savvy at all, and how all of us just agreeing like how very well executed and streamlined the concept of Kang, his multiple versions, a multiversal war, the reason he made this timeline, all of that stuff is done in such a way where it's super digestible to the audience that the MCU has attained. Even though I still see people saying, I'm confused. And I'm like, it's really right there, man.
You cannot get to the 6th episode of this show and then be confused when he talks about variants. The whole show is nothing about variants. It's all about variants. Like that's just you like deliberately being like ignorant, I think. Like I think it's not that confusing.
I think that's them deliberately like feeling like this is just not what I wanted, so I'm bored.
Yeah. I do think Loki is, and the Disney Plus TV shows in general, but Loki, I do think it is testing that audience that it has gained over the years. You know, not necessarily calling the ones who aren't going to get it, but like definitely testing like who's like how much of that audience what will we keep through these like heavy comic book moments now that we get further into.
I think Endgame pushed a lot of people towards like, oh, we can do big sci-fi stuff.
So John in a way suggested something to me that I think actually makes a lot of sense, which is that Loki is less the show for the people who are keeping up with every facet of the MCU and are here right now. Loki is the show that's there for the people 3 years from now who see Ant-Man and the Wasp and go, I don't get what's up with Kang. And they need to come back here, and then they're ready to understand. Then they want to know. It's for that part of the audience that necessarily isn't like bringing the TV shows in yet. That's where it's for. It's the foundation to make it so you go back and you go, oh, okay.
Yeah. I was at Black Widow. This reminded me of an anecdote. I was at Black Widow, and they were like, "Who's Julie Louis-Dreyfus? Why did she show up?" And I was like, "Huh." Should watch Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Show. She shows up for a minute.
And I mean, like, to be fair, like there's a whole chunk of the population that I totally understand. Like, you can't afford a streaming service, or maybe you have crap internet, and I feel real bad that that's the situation you're living in, because you might have internet so shitty you can't do a streaming service, and that really sucks. And I'm sorry, because the story is leaving you behind. And that's a bummer, because there are some people who can only live by going to the movies and seeing these movies, and that's how it is. And there's no solution to that at this moment. So hopefully they'll recognize that that's an issue over time, because there's a big chunk of Americans that just don't have the kind of internet service that would allow for them to watch Disney Plus, let alone afford it.
Disney, I know you're listening. Physical media helps.
And physical media would help. Like you would see for that huge chunk, the people who want to be in on this, go back and get these stories.
I think, to be devil's advocate, I think if you're poor, I think I'd rather just spend $5 a month and binge it all than spend like $50 on a DVD. But that's me.
No, I agree. But I mean, like, there's also rental capabilities. And there's
digital rentals.
There's digital rentals. But more than anything, I am speaking for like that chunk that like they literally don't have the internet.
No, I get it. No,
and it's like there should be.
People have talked about this in the heartland of the United States. The internet is just terrible. It doesn't matter about your status as a class. It's just awful.
Well, and I mean, really, like, you could say Star Wars is doing it too, but I think the MCU is a far more prevalent version of it. We are entering this mode where, like, which is cool. It works very well for the MCU. I'm happy for it. But where the shows and the films are in such communication with each other that if you're not catching one, you're not getting the whole scope.
Yeah.
And I do think that we're going to see like a start to spill out of like the people who through certain means feel like they're not able to take part in it. And hopefully that will even out and be balanced and remedied. But either way, the introduction of Jonathan Majors' character and He Who Remains, Kang and all that, perfect execution for getting the audience on board with it, and being able to just roll right into the Kangcade.
Kangcade, baby.
I love very, very happy with this season.
Oh, yeah.
Anything else we want to bring up?
What If coming out next month.
Yeah. Are we doing that as a Fake Nerds Watch or an animation station?
I don't know. We'll have to probably a Fake Nerds Watch.
Yeah, because that's
Keep it consistent.
yeah, that's yeah.
I mean, what else are we gonna do in that time anyway? Oh, excuse you, Jesus. That was Luna. She just burped. It's really loud. Tom Hiddleston dropping hints that like What If is gonna really directly impact the MCU and be tied to Loki, and I'm like, all right, cool.
Yeah, why not?
Also, Tom Hiddleston wants to play Loki for the rest of his life, and I'm like, all right, I'm here.
Yeah, I'm there for it. Do it.
If Chris Hemsworth and Tom Hiddleston end up being like the last remaining actors
Who
from
would've
the
thought?
original days of the MCU, I'll be like, man, that's beautiful.
I still.
The two of them at the end.
It really is beautiful to thought because like the articles that came out when they were cast were like Marvel takes chances on unknowns, and it's like and they ended up outliving everyone.
They're also the two Asgardian characters, so like having them at the end of it all being like, man, those were some crazy times, right?
Yep.
All right, 4 weeks to go until What If. So 4 weeks to go, and
crazy.
so that means 4 weeks to go until your next week's Fake News Watch.
How long do you think until we get a release date for Hawkeye or Miss Marvel?
Well,
I bet
think
Gotta be
Hawkeye's
around the
first.
corner. Huh?
I think Hawkeye's first.
I think Hawkeye's first too, but like we still don't have that release date. And they last time they said anything, they said end of this year. So
We've been getting like I think soon. I think they want to give each show or movie time to breathe.
I think October Hawkeye.
So I think we're probably gonna get more. We're definitely gonna get a Spider-Man trailer soon. I bet.
Oh, we gotta.
Yeah. Now that the multiverse stuff is out, I think
Yeah.
that rumored Spider-Man trailer from a year ago is finally coming out.
4, 5, 6, 7, 8,
Counting stuff.
9, 10. Okay, so theoretically, mid-October is when What If ends because it's 10 episodes for the first season. So I'm sure not far after that. is Hawkeye.
November.
I guess that almost guarantees, unless they're willing to put like What If and another one of them on at the same time.
I doubt it.
Then that almost guarantees we're only getting Hawkeye or Miss Marvel this year. So no,
I
we're
wouldn't-
not getting both.
I wouldn't be shocked if one gets pushed to like early next year, which isn't that much time, really.
I have always suspected that they might air What If concurrently with something else. Honestly, I don't know why, but it's just kind of a gut feeling. So I would believe it that Hawkeye would come out in like
Because,
during.
It's easy to think of the animation shows as lesser.
Yeah,
Oh
that's sad. That's a
See,
really
that's
sad
why-
way to put it.
That's why I would think they would like stagger them, so they would give each one a shot.
I will say until this last trailer and until Loki, I also was kind of thinking of like the animated What If as like a fun aside, rather than like real new making the MCU broader content.
Mhm.
And now it actually feels like it is newer making the MCU broader content. This is really disturbing.
Yeah, I agree with that, Sparks.
Yeah, I'm excited either way. It's all good.
All right.
Do we think Loki is in Doctor Strange, as Hollywood Reporter is saying? Unconfirmed by anyone else.
I
almost believed it, and then the show ended, and I'm like, why would they show him there before we'd see season 2? Like, where would it pick up?
I just believe everything.
Yeah.
Because like Alfred Molina, man.
That's so interesting. You believe everything. I don't believe everything.
See, I like after Alfred Molina is like, yeah, I'm in it. And, like,
But you can't even believe everything Alfred Molina says, because according to everyone else, like they'll film shit that's not fucking real.
No, I know, but I know he's in
and
the
they'll
movie.
give him scripts that
I
aren't
know
real.
he's in the
I know
movie.
he's in the movie, but he might see shit. Like literally, they bring Andrew Garfield and just so he'll blab about it.
I
And then
doubt.
it's
I doubt.
That's my point, though. Like, who knows? Like what they decide to not actually.
I don't believe it. Like I'm putting money on it, but like I'd rather believe it because like it's so silly.
Yeah.
That's half the guy.
I will say that I wouldn't be surprised if he showed up in Doctor Strange.
As like a
Suppose I wouldn't
cameo.
either.
I remember in Guardians 2 when they're like hopping through, and there's like I imagine that movie's gonna have a lot of that shit in it.
Oh.
That's where a lot of our cameo and stuff is gonna be. Just like they're just random multiverse stuff is happening.
Just pop in. Loki's like, nobody knows me, and then they disappear.
Yeah, like, are you here to help? And then Doctor Strange is like, no, and then just disappears. Like, yeah, totally. I can see that.
I wouldn't be surprised if Loki shows up in Doctor Strange, but I'm not expecting it.
Yeah,
I'd rather see Jonathan Majors. I'm not gonna lie. I'd rather see some Jonathan Majors cameo at this point. I'm gonna say that about every movie. I'd rather see Jonathan Majors in Internals. Ooh. I'd rather see Jonathan Majors anywhere.
See, now this makes more so. If this is the threat that brings the Eternals out, maybe that's something.
Oh, baby, you're speaking my language.
Because again,
they're doing time stuff in that too.
Who knows?
Oh my god.
Yeah, I'm curious what the of madness is in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness now, because
Shumagorath is in the movie, which is a giant tentacle monster. So there's definitely going to be an enemy, but
is that a red herring? Who knows? Not that in the sense that it's not in it, but is that not actually the important part?
Yeah. But it's definitely dealing with I think the Nightmare Dimension and Nightmare and Shumagorath. So it's definitely dealing with Nightmare cosmic stuff.
I feel like that movie's already so packed. I don't want to see Loki because we've already got Wanda and Spider-Man.
No, I know, but again, if it's, I don't mind a 5-second cameo.
And that's
what I mean. He's not going to be in the movie forever.
I'm just not I'd really rather a lot more screen time be given to establish America Chavez.
Oh no, I agree. That's why I'm saying 5 seconds won't kill him.
Oh man, that's right. We are getting America Chavez in that movie.
She's definitely in the movie because the marketing and the not marketing,
right?
The merchandise is out for it.
That one we know for sure.
Yeah, she's
they said that at the investor meeting. I just forget who all these new characters going to be.
Yeah, man. Man, just so much shit happening soon, you guys. It's exciting.
All right. Well, Ben, looks like you're about to fall asleep.
I don't know why. It's probably because I'm just super dehydrated.
Oh, drink water, Ben.
I'm going to drink water.
This is your weekly reminder.
So I can go get some water.
I mean, go get some water. We'll vamp a bit. No.
Or we're gonna send this episode.
Yeah.
I didn't going into this. I did not have a whole lot to say other than I love Jonathan Majors. I like that we're getting a season 2. It's not just a one and done. Although not to say that that's a detriment to the other shows, because I think the other shows are good as a limited series, and it's a one and done, and then they can move on to other things. But this one, it's I do want to see more of Loki. I do want to see what's going to happen next. And we've been singing his praises since the beginning of this episode, and I'm on that Kang train, baby. I'm on it. Take me to the end of the line for this ride, dude.
Sparks.
Could we say that this is the first MCU project without a post-credit scene? Because that was not a post-credit scene.
No, it wasn't. Incredible Hulk doesn't have a post-credit.
Endgame. Endgame ends with just the sound of the hammer.
That's true.
Yep, there you go.
Yeah, and actually that beats me because Incredible Hulk has a mid-credit, not a post.
Yeah.
Myth busted. Take that, Jamie Heineman.
No, that's true.
Didn't Age of Ultron not have a post-credit scene?
No, it does. It's fine, I'll do it myself.
Oh, that's right. I thought that was mid-credit.
No. Well, I mean, I'm not specifying mid or post here. I'm just, is there something after the credits start? Is there a scene?
Endgame.
So
yeah, it would be Endgame because it doesn't have anything.
Yep, that's true. I forgot about that.
All right.
Also, Ryan, every time you were taking a drink of your water, I thought your cup was floating.
Yeah, that's the idea, baby. Woo!
I'm so happy that Kang is the new big bad. I'm just so happy. I wanted that, and I'm just pleased. And Jonathan Majors is a dream.
Yeah. My final thought is Kang was trending on Twitter, and anytime something nerdy like that happens, I'm just like, we made it. Good for us.
All right, so that'll do it then. Anything else you guys want to add? Final thoughts, or should we get out of here?
No, let's go.
I think this is a much better way to introduce your big movie multiverse than Flashpoint.
Oh yeah,
and I'll put it that way. So,
all right. So stay tuned. So that means Fake Nerds Watch will be going away for a couple of weeks. Coming back with What If, as we spoke about in the episode. So stay tuned for that. Rewatch Loki. Go back and watch our Fake Nerds Watch. See what we got right. See what we got wrong. We were always right about Kang. And that's.
I was always right.
I thought you had a Kang shirt on for a second.
Both Kang train.
Oh my god, that was so weird because I didn't. You just saw his hand stop.
Oh, did it again?
It's so weird. All right. Anyway, because it looked like you high-fived yourself. All right. Of course, make sure to like this video, subscribe to this channel. You can check out other Fake Nerds Watch. If you like Jonathan Majors, maybe go check out Lovecraft Country. B15 is also in that. So check that out and check out our Fake Nerds Watch where we did Lovecraft Country.
So nice to see these two Lovecraft Country stars succeeding so well. So when's Journey Smollett coming, guys?
Hell yeah, get her in there.
You know what's happening.
And she's already Black Canary.
Yeah. She's in DC, but she could be here too. She wouldn't be the first.
It's true.
This makes me want to do a show with you where I just sit here and share opinions, and you just every once in a while unzip and go, I disagree, and then like zip back up.
I disagree.
All right, so check out our other shows on this channel as well, such as the Fake Nerd Book Club, currently on hiatus, Basement Arcade, currently on hiatus, Basement Arcade Pause Menu. No new episode coming out soon, Ben? Do you have anything planned? Okay.
I got something planned. I just need to reach out to people.
Stay tuned for that. And there's actually going to be a Fake Nerds Watch coming. Or at Animation Station. We haven't settled on it, but something is coming. Ben and I are going to be talking about the Transformers trilogy, anime trilogy on Netflix. He was going to watch the second season, and we're going to both watch the third.
Now you're the Invisible Man from Hotel Transylvania.
Oh, so I'm sexy.
That's there's a lot of people that thirst for you until the reality is revealed.
That was crazy.
I'm just seeing. That is so cool how all I'm seeing is just a pair of floating glasses.
Technology.
All right. And speaking of Animation Station, our final show, Animation Station, our current freshman show on this channel. Check them out. All of them are available here. And like I said, like this video and subscribe to this channel. You get all that cool stuff. And you can check out other things such as our mothership show, the Fake Nerd Podcast. Sparta's still laughing at Ryan.
Yeah.
You can check out our mothership show, the Fake Nerd Podcast Conversation. There's also that where I talk to podcasters and things. New episode coming soon. But of course, Fake Nerd Podcast, which we do live every Sunday, sometimes remotely, sometimes in person. Last week we talked about Black Widow. This week, speaking of the MCU, this week we're talking about Gunpowder Milkshake. You can check that out. That's the new Netflix movie with Karen Gillan. A whole slew of cool female stars. And unless you watch, whatever. When is this coming out, Sparks?
Probably
Monday.
because of how I have to download it. Probably Monday, but maybe tomorrow.
So then our last episode was Gunpowder Milkshake, but our next episode will be Snake Eyes. So check that out.
Oregons.
All right, and of course that's it. You can check out our TeePublic, where you can buy some shirts. You can check out our Patreon, where you can support us. You can check out our website at FakeNerdPodcast.com. You can find us on all the social medias at Fake Nerd Podcast, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. FakeNerdGuys@gmail.com. I'm at BT McClure on Instagram and Twitter. Ben?
You can find me just marveling at what Ryan's doing with his green screen suit at BenMagnet27 on Instagram and Twitter.
Sparks?
You can find me celebrating the beginning of the Kangcade, baby, at Sparks Witty on Instagram and Twitter. SPARKZ Witty. All aboard that Kang train.
The Invisible Man?
You can find me at DJ Tony Snark everywhere. Choo choo! All aboard the Kang train.
All right, find us where. Make sure like this video, subscribe to this channel, find our podcast on all the podcast social medias. Rate and review. Until next time we see us, stay fake nerds.
All right, so I got Ben Magnet, and I've got Brandon McClure, and myself. I think we're all good to board the train. Damn it. Wow. Sorry, I'm going to start over.